Hello, curling fans, and welcome back to another edition of the Broom Brothers, the official podcast of the curling group and the Grand Slam of Curling. John Cullen with you once again, and I am pleased to be joined, as always, by my brother in crime, the Bruce Buffer of the Grand Slam of Curling. It's Robbie Doherty.
Howard Finkel. You know what? I'll take Bruce Buffer. How are you, John? I haven't seen you in 48 hours.
I know. A lot has changed since then, actually. You wouldn't believe it. I have some radical new ideas about how I'm going to live my life, and I'm going to start right now. So,
okay, let's hear them.
Oh,
we can save it.
Yeah, we'll save it. That maybe we'll play a game at the end and I'll tell you what they are. The game can be, you can guess how I'm radically overhauling my life. No, yes, we did just see each other 48 hours ago. We were in Guelph for the WFG Masters.
Yep.
It's in the books. A great event. You know, we saw some slam debuts. We saw a first-time winner on the men's side of things. It was just a great week. Maybe before we get into the minutia of Guelph, tell me about your week. How'd you feel about the WFG Masters?
The week flew by. Like, it felt like I had just started, and then all of a sudden we were in the finals. So it was one of those weeks. I don't know. The games were good. Some changes we'll talk about here coming up, but I don't know. I didn't really notice a difference to the flow of the game or anything like that, but certainly great curling. Like, the games were awesome, especially the finals. Both finals, the men's and the women's, were both really, really, really well played. The men, John, it was you. I ran into in the hallway. I think it was after like the fourth end. And I think I said something like, boy, this is a snoozer. And you were like, oh, just give it time. I maybe it wasn't the finals, but anyway, the game turned out to be a really, really exciting. Both teams played well. Jacobs probably played well enough to win. It was just right shot at the right time for Whyte, and definitely happy to see them finally get the monkey off their back and win a Grand Slam. They're certainly deserving of it. And we'll get into it more in depth, of course. But on the women's side, they certainly didn't let the men's game take the shine away. That was certainly a well-played game, a battle on both sides. And we saw David overcome Goliath, I guess. And
yeah, the whole field is David and Rachel Homan is Goliath.
Is Goliath, exactly.
Yeah.
But again, Rachel probably played well enough to win too. And it was just came down to, I think hammer was probably the difference in that game. But
yeah.
It was certainly an exciting week. How did you find it?
Yeah, it was great. I think over the years, as someone who obviously watches a lot of the slam games, and you've been at a lot of the slams over the years, usually having a slam in the suburbs of Toronto is a challenge, right? There's a lot going on in the big city, and it does seem like over the years they've had some issues getting fans in the building in the suburbs of Toronto. So I think for me, and I think for the whole crew, I think we were all kind of, St. John's was so amazing. We talked about it on the pod, maybe the best slam ever. And we had a really great time there. And I think we all were kind of a little nervous, like, oh, we're going to go from the best slam ever to Southern Ontario and who knows what'll happen. But I think we all kind of felt when we were there, like, there's momentum here. Like, there was a ton of fans in the stands. We got the introduction of the Banana Boys, which really got the crowd going. So yeah, I think that was honestly one of my big takeaways was that, the stands were quite full. Lots of tickets sold. Fans were super into it. The Grand Slam of Karaoke was sold out.
Was it ever?
Yeah, like they were nervous too because, for the past 3 events, the Grand Slam of Karaoke has been nearby. It's been like within walking distance, or in the case of Nisku, in the arena itself.
Yeah.
And so, I think as an event organizer, obviously you feel like, okay, it's easy to get fans to go there after the game because they can walk over there. Well, in Guelph, there wasn't really an obvious place to do it near the arena. So we did it at the hotel, which was about a 10-minute drive away from the arena. And I think, again, it was kind of like, oh, are fans going to show up to this? And then it was like I don't know if they turned away people at the door or not, but it was sold out, jam-packed, amazing night. So yeah, I think that was, aside from the curling, which obviously we're going to get into, I feel like that was my big takeaway, was that it felt like we're kind of maybe breaking through a little bit, and that was a really special week. The fans in Guelph were amazing. You talked about the volunteers. I was talking to the volunteer coordinator who said that they ended up having to turn away volunteers. They had, I think there was something like they needed 75 volunteers and they got 160 people apply to be a volunteer or whatever. So, just really special curling community, really fun to be there. And I thought it was a great event.
It was well ran as well. Congratulations. If any of the host committees listening to this, Robin and Aaron, anyway, it was Rob who I knew best, who I spoke to the most, and he was one of the co-chairs, and he really, 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 you could tell, knew everything inside out. He was on top of things. He was texting me a lot because he was really in charge of the 50-50, and the pot was growing over the weekend. So we would text back a lot. Make sure you announce this. Make sure you announce this. So I kind of got to know him pretty well, and he was telling me some of the same stuff and just the enthusiasm behind it, and not just the volunteers, but with curling Guelph in general, like the curling club in Guelph. It seemed like, they had a lot of support, and I think they have a ton of members. And you could tell that the whole club was so excited to have it there, and it was big for Guelph. Like, I know they had hosted one before, but it's been a while. And, seeing the new teams for the first time, they were truly excited. And I know firsthand the players had a great time. So I'd call it a success.
Yeah, no, totally. Just to pick you up there. Yeah. Rob, Aaron, and Byron were the organizing committee there in Guelph. So yeah, great job to them. Hats off. I agree with you. Just saw a lot of excited faces, people stoked to see and meet their favorite curlers. It was a great time in Guelph. Let's talk about the curling. And I think we have to start on the men's side because we do have a first-time Grand Slam winner. Ross Whyte finally breaks through. He's been in many of the slams over the years. We've seen him as an alternate for Bruce Mowat at times throughout the slams. They kind of went through it with, they were a bubble team for a while, so they'd be kind of in one slam, out of the next one. But now they're firmly in the upper echelon, and they confirmed it with their big win on Sunday over Team Jacobs. Tell me a little bit about Team Whyte and their week.
Oh, I think the key to them was consistency. They were just, any miss they had, especially in the final, it was by an inch and no more sort of thing. And they just seemed dialed in all week. And I found that team last year, I think it was also the Masters. Mm-hmm. They made the final. They weren't able to win it. I think they lost to Retornes.
That's correct. Yep.
But I remember talking to them before that game, and it was Robin and Ross. And they told me how much, it means to them to be here in this game. And they weren't able to pull through that day, but I just remember thinking, I think I said this to Ross, in the dressing room after. I said, don't worry, your time will come, sort of thing. And anyway, before the finals this week, I had a good chat with Ross. He was just sitting in the crowd, and I just looked at him, and all I said, "Are you pumped?" And they just looked at me like two gladiators about to enter the Coliseum. They just said, "Oh yeah, like we're so ready for this. We're so pumped to be here." You can really tell it means a lot to them. And I think for Canadian fans, I don't think sometimes they grasp how important and how big and how meaningful these Grand Slam wins are for the international teams. Mm-hmm. They have the Europeans, which is a great event and a lot of pride and a lot of history and, a lot on the line there, but, the Europeans were never in 20,000 seat arenas like the Briars have been in past years. And so I think for them, an international team, a young team, a team that's worked as hard as Team Whyte, to see them win, it was really good. It was emotional. Like I even felt myself tearing up a little bit when I went to interview him after the game, just because you saw how much it meant to him. And, for a while there, things weren't really looking in their favor. It just seemed like they couldn't kind of break through in the middle ends. But at the end, they led on the scoreboard and they got the win.
Yeah, no, I agree. And fans may not know this, but it felt like Team Whyte and I had a secret meeting place this week, and it was the pita pit that was a block from the arena. It just happened that like every time they had a game at the lunchtime draw or whatever, I think it was 11:30, if I had to commentate a game after, I would go get pita pit after the game, and they would go get pita pit after their game. And so we ended up meeting at pita pit like 3 times this week. And I talked to them a lot. And yeah, you're totally right. I think one thing that fans don't realize is it's not only what it means to them as far as, just playing in these tournaments for years and wanting the sort of the glory and the satisfaction of being a Grand Slam champion, but it also affects their funding, right? And it can also affect their status as far as being selected, and I think Team Whyte is a team that has had to go through that, right? Unfortunately, their sort of little brother, Bruce Mowat is number one right now in the world with a bullet. Ross Whyte did break through last year and won the Scottish Championship, but that didn't matter. Mowat was the defending world champions. British curling sent Mowat to the Worlds. And so, for them, with the Olympics coming up, the Olympic selection, the Worlds, and then even how much their organization gives them in terms of funding, all of that is results based, at least for most of the countries. I don't want to speak out of turn, but from what I have learned over the years, talking to the players, it's so much of it is based around that. And so that's the thing that the slams mean too, is it's putting yourself on the map as far as like, hey, British curling, like we're right here. We're really close with Bruce. We want to be in the conversation of a team that could be selected to go to some of these championships. And so, yeah, it was phenomenal. And I think too, like Ross is one of those skips. He's a quiet guy. He's very, he's intense. He's calculated. And even I, coming into the slams, like working for the slams this year, I had never really met them before. Yep. And, the first couple slams, I kind of thought, I've been in this around Ross, doesn't really say much. Maybe he doesn't like me. I don't know. You start to have those thoughts run through your head. And then I got to spend some time with them in St. John's. We went for that meal right on the water there at Piercy's Twine Store. You can watch that feature on the Grand Slam of Curling YouTube. But I got to spend a whole afternoon with them, and they're just awesome guys. They love curling. They're so passionate. They work really, really hard. And yeah, just getting to know them they're just a really great group of guys. And so I think that added even more for me, seeing them win, was it just felt like I really got to know them in St. John's. And I think the fans over time will get to know them better too. I think, we saw Robin do the Grand Slam of karaoke, even though he was in the final the next day. Things like that. I think you and Kyle is super funny as well. Yeah. I think they're a team that, I think you and I are seeing Bruce Mowat become a fan favorite. I think we're not that far away from Ross Whyte joining that group as well.
Oh, I agree. I played my Tuesday night league last night, and a lot of the members who, you kind of get those generic curling club comments from, they were all saying the same thing. They were saying it was so nice to see them win. We've seen their names so many times, and to see them break through. So I think that emotion really came through the screen when they won, and they saw how much it meant for them. And you mentioned Ross being a quiet guy. He certainly is, but just as someone who's been around the slams, if you ever see Ross with a couple of beer in front of him, sit at that table. He's pretty funny.
Yes. Oh yeah, he's a super funny guy. Like I think, that team is sort of they're a good group of lads, I think. Is what the Scottish people would say. Yeah, they're good, fun to be around for sure. And I agree. I think that was definitely something I think fans were connecting to, right? You see the emotion when they win. It's impossible not to be excited for them and 100%. To cheer for that. And I think of Duncan too, Duncan McFadgen the second, also a pretty stoic, kind of quiet guy. And seeing the waterworks from him, his dad was there. And so off camera, got to see him kind of have a moment with his dad right before they did the championship walk up the ice. And he really, he couldn't compose himself. And I think that's, that just shows how much the slams mean to teams in general, but really how much it meant to Team Whyte. And I was really happy for them. And like you said, the numbers in the final were bananas. It was probably one of the most well-played finals from a percentage perspective. So for Jacobs, you had Ben at 95, Brett at 94, Mark at 91, Brad at 97. And then for Whyte, you had Ewan at 100, Duncan at 83, Robin at 98, and Ross at 92.
Wow.
So,
that's incredible.
I did the averages yesterday, and like the average percentage across all players for that game was 94%. So you want to talk about a well-played final. And I was talking with Robin after as well. And he was saying like, though, sometimes the stats can be a little bit off. And he said like their coach stats were very close to those as well. So it was a really well played game from both sides. It was nice to see Jacobs keep the train rolling. It's starting to feel like maybe they're emerging as the Briar favorite. We saw Brad Gushue go 0-4 in this slam. It's the first time he's gone winless in a slam since 2006, which is crazy. You know, 20 years of playing in the slams, and he's had different lineups and spares for some of those events and whatever. And
I was in high school.
Yeah, there you go. You said it all. So it's going to be really interesting. I think, you know, this is the last tournament before the Briar. I think we're starting to see Dunstone heat up. We're starting to see Jacobs heat up, and Brad Gushue hasn't quite felt the same since Brendan Botcher has joined the team. And it's not Brendan's fault. He's playing really well when you watch them play. I think they're just still kind of getting used to the change. Mike McEwen has kind of just been consistent all year long. You know, they were in the final in Lloydminster in what was like a slam level field. They're just kind of kicking her. They did miss the playoffs in Guelph, but they've been very consistent all year. And I mean, I think all 4 of those teams are in the top 10 in the world right now. So it really feels like heading into the Briar, teams are playing really well, and it's going to be exciting to watch in about 6 weeks from now.
Yeah. And just to add to that, and, you know, statisticians and historians might call me out on this, but I feel like Gushue has done this before, not gone winless, but kind of struggled in that late December, early January slam. And then I don't want to say the fans counted him out, because if you ever count Brad Gushue out of a curling tournament, you're an idiot. But, you know, it's you got to wonder if he's almost sorry, this sounds terrible, because obviously he wasn't planning to go 0-4, but Brad Gushue knows how to turn it on
for sure
in the moment. And yeah, sure, he might have struggled. And I do agree with your comment, by the way, that Team Jacob seems to be the early favorite, kind of breaking through. But mark my words, Gushue will be ready come Briar time, and it's going to be fun to watch.
Well, and I think if you ask any of the curlers, they'd tell you the same thing too. You don't bet against Brad Gushue at a Briar. So we'll have lots of time to tee that up over the next few weeks. But yeah, definitely something to pay attention to. Over on the women's side of the slam, certainly not a first win for Anna Hasselborg, but it was her first win in almost 3 years. Her last win was at the 2022 Players. This was her 8th slam win in general. And we are going to talk to Anna about her slam win and everything that's going on with her team coming up in our interview. But what did you think about Anna Hasselborg getting her hands back on a slam trophy?
That team right from game 1 looked hungry. They were there. They looked like they wanted to win. They got close in St. John's. They had a little bit of time off, you know, with the holidays and such. And it just looked like from day one, they were on a mission, and they had a perfect week. And not just winning the final, beating a sort of tough team. And during the draft, tried to call out Rachel and pick her in the quarters, which was, I'd like to see the replay, because I'm pretty sure my face just went.
Yeah, I knew that was happening, because I was the one who was tasked with making sure that Anna got the t-shirt in the broadcast booth. So I knew that was happening, and it was still a great moment. And then Rachel kind of calling her out at the Grand Slam of Karaoke, I thought was awesome. And yeah, I agree. You know, I think it's probably the same with you, because you're at so many of the draws doing the intros and watching a lot of the games. But when you're up in the broadcast booth, like, you really do have the best seat in the house when it comes to curling. Like, you can see all the sheets. And so obviously you're dialed in on the game you're calling, but you know, when there's a timeout or stuff's going on, your eyes can tend to wander over to other sheets. And I feel like when you're in the broadcast booth all week, you really get a sense of which teams are playing really well. And obviously, you know, I called a Hasselborg game earlier in the tournament too, but I really felt like Hasselborg was the class of the field this week. And conversely, I did actually think that Rachel, and I said this in the final, Tyler George and I were on the call on Home Team Network for that, but I thought they looked vulnerable, or they looked beatable. And vulnerable is a strong word, because, you know, they've lost 4 times this entire season, but it just looked, you know, in Nisku, in St. John's, it just kind of looked like, you know, Rachel was going to find a way to win, and it didn't matter what you did. And this was the first tournament this season where I kind of thought, you know what, she could be had. It wasn't like, and that happened in the round robin. She lost to Isabella Vrano in the round robin. And then we saw her lose, obviously, the final to Anna. And you know, the semifinal was a bit of a struggle too. She was down to Eunjung Kim and then, you know, kind of found her way back into the game. But yeah, I just felt going into that final that if Anna played the way she had played all week, that the win was going to be there for her. And that's exactly what happened.
Yeah. And you literally took the words out of my mouth in terms of talking about Homan finding a way to win. I don't think there's a curling team on planet Earth, men or women, who's better than that at Rachel. Like she, you know, even in St. John's, she was down one without, I think, in the 6th, playing Kim in the semis, found a way to win. Kim was leading her in the semis in Guelph. And again, I think Kim had a little mishap. Rachel made her pay, found a way to win. So I agree. They didn't look as sharp as perhaps they do in other slams, but at the same time, they're still Team Homan. And that game is not over until the last rock comes to a stop. And you kind of saw it start to happen in the 5th end. I think Anna was playing a guard, and Anna was struggling with her rocks. She definitely didn't have a good pair.
No, it picked, I think. And then, she didn't, if she got the guard up, she almost certainly gets the force, maybe even a steal.
Or a steal. Yeah. Exactly. And, but Anna, they cut my interview a little bit short just based on timing post game. But one of the questions I wanted to ask her was about mental toughness and just trying to, you know, how do you work on that? How do you stay tough after missing? How do you bounce back? How do you stay in the moment? You know, giving points away against someone like Team Homan. How do you stay so composed and you know, just dialed in? And she did a really good job of that. She didn't let her emotions get in the way after a couple of mishaps and a miss, and it paid off in the last end. It was tough for me because I have to interview the winner after, and like most of the time, you kind of have a good idea going into the 8th end who you're going to win. And I don't have a journalism degree, so it's not like I learned how to think of questions. I'm just kind of thinking as a curler and fan and what I would want to know. But it's so hard because, you know, if it's 5-2 going into the final, you know, you're interviewing Team X. Right. Where both games were literally either tied up or within one, and you know, someone was down one with, and it was just like, oh my gosh, we're just gonna have to wing this. So it's kind of terrifying.
Well, I have some news for you, Robbie. You can ask Anna about that in like 15 minutes from now.
I will. And I want to ask her about karaoke too.
Well, yeah. Oh yeah, for sure. Me too. It's going to be great. We should also say we're going to talk a little more broadly about the slam here in a second, but also just hats off. First win at the slam for Jordan McDonald and Kayla Skurlik. Nice to see them in the slams. It was the first slam for both those teams. So it was nice to see them. Nice to have John Epping back in the slam. Probably had maybe the most exciting game of the week against Husley on Friday night. They needed that win to get themselves into a tiebreaker, and Philip Husley had a draw to the house, and he put it through the house, which unfortunate. You almost never see it, but the crowd loved it. They went wild. John Epping was able to seal it with a really nice shot in the extra end. You know, tough week for them. We'll talk about that in a minute too. But yeah, it was just great to have them back. Congratulations to McDonald and Skurlik getting their first slam wins. It was just great to see some new faces and great to see them have really good weeks and be competitive and in the mix. It was really nice. Okay. We got to talk about the rule changes now that it's over. You know, going into this slam, we were really dialed into talking about this. No, you can't blank 2 ends in a row or you'll lose the hammer. How did you end up liking it in practice, Robbie? Did it seem like something you'd like to see moving forward? Tell us about your thoughts on that.
In true curling form, I don't hate it. I'm not saying it's the answer to all the problems. I don't think I'm ever going to be the first person to stand up and say that blanks are a terrible thing. Like a lot of times, and we've talked about this on this podcast, but a lot of times blanks are because somebody makes a triple and then the next team makes a triple, where, you know, there is angles and they are frozen 2 rocks before that. And it's because of great shots. I think Mark Kennedy said that quite often too in different interviews. But it was fun to see. There was a couple times where you'd notice the strategy change a little bit, like just teams, if they blanked, you know, and it was looking like a pretty empty house, like they'd be calling random freezes and random shots or try to hide behind anything just to try anything to get their 2. So it was kind of cool in that regard. I don't think it changed the game very much. Feel free to disagree, but
no, I don't think so either. And I think you're exactly right. I actually called the Bruce Mowat, Mike McEwen round robin game this week. And the 6th end in that game was a blank, and it was one of the best blanks I've ever seen in my life. It was like Colton Flash made this like double angle takeout tap kind of thing that was amazing. And then Grant Hardy came down and made, like I almost said, as shot of the week. It could have been those two shots together. It was like a prize fight. It was like Flash made this 10-beller, and then Grant Hardy came down and he made a 10-beller right back. And then both Mike and Bruce had to make really tough shots with their last ones to end up getting the blank. And I said on the mic, I was like, and you want to get rid of blank ends. Like it was just, such a well-played end. And I think, you and I have talked about this on the show. It's a little bit overstated, that blanks equal boring. I think I feel the same as you. I didn't really notice that much of a difference, to be honest. I didn't think the teams played super differently. It seemed like earlier in the week, teams were maybe experimenting with some different strategies when they were, the team, like, let's say the other team had the hammer and there was a blank. I think you saw the team without hammer in those situations try some different things, but I didn't think it changed the strategy too much. And I actually thought really the only game where it was like a true test of the rule was the final, because to me, it went blank one. That was the first half of the game. It was 1-1 at the fourth end break. And to me, that was, I think people were concerned coming into the event that it might actually make the games more boring, because if you know that your opponent will draw for one if there's nothing else in play, then you might play a little bit differently or a little more defensive. And the final felt like that example of, you got two good hitting teams playing great. It felt like that was more what the scoreboard might look like. Yeah. Obviously, the second half of the game ended up heating up and it didn't really matter, but that was the idea of, okay, so, if this rule is in place all the time, are more scores going to start to look like that? If teams are playing really well or whatever, like, are the games going to be more like 0-1, 0-1, 0-1? Because that's not that entertaining either. So,
no.
So it'll be interesting to see, but I think if you ask the teams, they would probably say the same things we're saying, that like it was fine. It wasn't actively bad. It didn't solve any problems. It just kind of happened and it was fine.
Yeah. And I thought I would have seen a little bit more aggression out of teams with the hammer that blanked, like the end before.
Yeah.
I found like I was expecting to see a lot of double corner guards even earlier on in the game, and it didn't seem to feel like that. That could have been just my observation. So I think that's why I feel like it didn't seem that different. Like a lot of the early ends didn't look very different. Like you said, there was a couple obvious, like you said, that sixth end with Mowat and McEwen. I was watching that game as well. And I made that comment. By the way, if Fisherman's Friend wants to sponsor us, please get in touch.
I would love it.
ASAP. We're dying here.
Yeah.
No, but yeah, I guess it didn't change much to me. I think it's great how we tried something though. Like, I think just curling just needs something.
Totally.
And it was a cool idea. I'm not sure if it will last. Maybe it will. But again, it definitely didn't change the energy of the game, the speed of the game, and really the outcomes as much as I probably would have thought, if that makes sense.
Well, I also don't mind, and I think, listening to people talk about this rule change, both like talking to curlers at the slams, listening to other podcasts, just people talking about it. It feels like everyone was approaching this like this was a test run for this being the rule all the time. Mm-hmm. And like one thing you hear from curling fans often is that, there's 5 slams a year and they all pretty much follow the same format. It's like we have one slam that's a triple knockout. We have one slam where there's only 12 teams instead of 16 teams. And then that's it. And otherwise they all kind of look the same, which is not bad. They're the best curling tournaments on earth. But I have heard people over the years say, well, like one of the cool things about tennis is that, the French Open is played on clay and Wimbledon's played on grass, and Australian Open and US Open are hard court. And then in golf, the Masters is always at Augusta, but the British Open changes courses and it's usually a link style course. So that's a different way of playing golf. And could we do that at the slams? And people usually talk about ice conditions for some reason, I guess, just because it's like different playing fields, and their idea is like, well, what if we had a slam where the ice was just really heavy? It's like, well, that's not interesting for anybody. But I do wonder if that's the way we approach some of these rules moving forward. I saw the Grand Slam Twitter account float out would we ever try like covering the pin is worth 2 points, or something like that? Or would we ever do a slam where it's a skins game or match play or something like that, like we used to do with the Elite 10?
Yep.
And I think, moving forward, that's something I could see too, is like, maybe this isn't the rule at every slam, but at the WFG Masters every year, that's the slam where you can't blank 2 ends in a row. Or at the Co-op Canadian Open, if you cover the pin, it's 2. And it doesn't have to be every slam. It just gives curlers a different look and gives the slams a different look. And maybe that's a way that you can do that without, let's make the ice super heavy or whatever.
Yeah. Augusta next year. Let's dig trenches in the green.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's a big ridge right in front of the house, and you have to throw the rock hard enough to make it over the ridge.
Yeah, try and skip it over. Yeah, no, I think that's a cool idea. But give the slam, like each event, their own identity a little bit. And one of the good things about the slams, and I'm not trying to open this 100-year debate, but I like how the slams are 8 ends. In an 8-end games, you don't have time to, like, I guarantee you, draw one of the Scotties next month. You're going to turn it on. It's going to be a seeded team versus a good provincial team. And that first one's going in the top 4, and that second one's being hit. And then we're hitting and we're blanking. And then probably the same thing in the second end. And then third end, they'll start to mix it up. And I think that's one thing that we're spoiled with too with the slams, is that, in 8 ends, teams generally get out there and they get the gloves off right away.
Yeah.
They don't wait to get guards up, start getting aggressive early on. And so I agree with you in the sense that we don't need to change the rules of the sport for every event, but something like that every year at the WFG Masters, if you implement that rule or a rule like that, I don't think that's a bad thing.
Yeah, I agree. Okay, very quickly, because we do have to cover Foamgate before we get out of here. How'd you feel about the draft? I know we already talked about the event draft, but how'd you like the playoff draft?
I loved it. I thought it was super fun. Chirping some of the curlers on their entertainment value, but I wish a few of them had chirped a little bit more. Brad Jacobs, 5 stars as
really
usual.
Good. Yeah, as usual. Yeah.
And Langer was pretty funny as well with his commentary. But no, I think it's a cool idea. And again, just like we said about the double blank rule, doesn't have to be every event, but man, that was fun to do it once. I thought it added some excitement, and I know the numbers were really, really good for tuning in. So there was certainly fan interest. Again, I think it's probably a little bit of a generational thing for those who like it and those who don't.
Yep.
Based on the social media platform that they were discussing it on. And but I thought it was cool. Just added something different. It added some entertainment. Again, it gave the fans a little peek at, behind the curtain at what the curlers are kind of really like in real life and when they're not on the ice and with the live broadcast. And I thought it just added drama and just another layer. What about you?
Yeah, I agree. I think the same thing. I think if you did it at every slam, it might lose its luster a little bit. So I like the idea of doing it maybe once or twice a year. I think that's really fun. And I agree with you. I think one thing that I thought while watching it, both the pre-event draft and the draft up in the broadcast booth there, is we need to find a way to make it longer. It just curlers, I think, and it's the first time too, right? So curlers aren't wanting to step on each other's toes or, whatever. But I think we sort of realized that it's okay to make a comment like Anna, wearing the Homan shirt, or Homan making the comment at GSOK or whatever. Like, I think the more we do it, the more curlers will get a little more comfortable with the trash talk and the, having fun and whatever. But yeah, that was the only thing, is it just kind of, it's a cool idea, and it felt like it really breezed by in both cases. And so, yeah, I think moving forward, I'd love to find a way to make it a little bit longer and maybe have a little bit more entertainment, just because it is so interesting. Yep. But yeah, other than that, no complaints. I thought it was great. I think it was really funny too to see Jacobs take Muskatovitz, and I was standing beside Rachel Homan in the booth because she was getting ready to do the women's draft after, and she turned to me and she was like, "What are they doing?" Like, because Muskatovitz is very good, and but they're young, and Team Jacobs has been around a long time. They probably haven't really heard of them, and you heard Brad say like, "Well, we've never played them before. We've played all these other teams. Why not play someone new?" But if you look at the year-to-date standings, they're the European champions. They're a really good team. They made the playoffs at their first slam in St. John's. They made the playoffs this week. And so, yeah, just to have another curler be like, what are they? Have they not looked at the standings or the stats? Like, this is kind of crazy. It ended up paying off. They scored 4 in the first end against Muskatovitz and beat them in the quarterfinals. But just even having that layer, it was the same thing when Rachel Homan herself picked Sung-Yoon Ha in the pre-event draft. I think people thought, well, why are you picking the number 9 ranked team when you could pick 16 or 15 or whatever? But every team has their reasons, and I think that's what makes the draft really fun. And it was it was really enjoyable for sure.
It's funny because in my head I said the same thing when I heard Brad say Muskatovitz. I was like, what do you think?
Yeah.
It was like Polly in Rocky 4. Where are you fighting? Russia. Are you nuts?
Yeah, but
I mean,
overall,
I'm not saying that, but
totally.
But yeah, that Muskatovitz, they're a good team.
They're a good team, and they're really young. And I talked with their coach Ryan Sherrard at the event, and he was just saying like, they're still in just excitement mode. Like, they can't believe they're at the slams. And he said they were actually super excited that Brad Jacobs picked them because he's a curling hero of theirs, and it was kind of their first time to get to play him and whatever. And so, yeah, it's really cool. I think they're really good. I think Ryan's doing a really good job with them as well. Former Canadian junior champion, has been living in Munich for the last 16 years. And
from New Brunswick.
From New Brunswick, indeed. And he's got them going. They're really fun. Seem like really good guys too. And they're a good team. We're gonna be saying their name a lot over the next few years.
Of all names for the MC.
All names, I know.
Muskatovitz.
I know.
We joke about that all the time, but they're pretty good to help me. So anyway, yeah. It was fun. It was a fun week. Yeah, it was fun to try a new rule. The draft was great. It was just a good week in Guelph. It's good
really
to be back.
Good week. And okay, we got to talk about it. Foamgate, Broomgate 2.0. What
I think they need to go back to corn brooms. Actual comment I read online.
I know. I went on CBC. I did the eye opener here in Calgary during the Masters because they were, they wanted someone to come on and talk about the scandal and, or well, lack of a better word, scandal. And that was a question they asked me too. I think they weren't. It was semi-serious, but why don't we just go back to corn brooms? I was like, well, because you can do even more crazier stuff with corn brooms than you can with push brooms. So
yeah, let's go back to AM radio.
Yeah, exactly. I agree. But yeah, so Foamgate is here. We saw before the event that the curlers, most of them had signed an agreement. Goldline and Hardline signed it. Team Epping did not sign it, but had kind of wanted to have the Balance Plus, the new RS 2.0 firm foam, and the Goldline Pursuer head not be used in competition. Then we found out during the event that John Epping felt like he was not consulted about this and was kind of just sort of told like, hey, we don't want you to use this broom. And, John being the sportsman that he is. And, if you listen to Broomgate, the podcast, how sportsman-like he was during that as well. He had the black magic and kind of put it away midway through a game because he knew it was just too powerful. And so they got put in a really tough spot. Very emotional interview that John gave with Devin Haru after his first game at the Masters. It's a lot of stuff is going on here, Robbie.
I felt bad for John during the week, especially after seeing that interview, because I think I said this about Brianne Harris and the drug testing. If anybody in this sport is not going to purposely cheat, it's probably John Epping. Like, he's just one of the classiest, sportsman-like people you'd ever meet. And let's be like, I'm not saying that I agree that Balance Plus should be used. I'm not coming out and saying that that's my statement, but John wasn't breaking any rules.
No,
the broom was approved.
It had literally been approved. It wasn't even, in Broomgate, it was tricky because there weren't really rules in place about the brooms at all.
Yep.
And so that's kind of what caused Broomgate was, there was like half a page in the curling rule book about sweeping. So, if you wanted to bring a block of wood stapled to the end of a handle, you probably could do that. You could kind of sweep with whatever you wanted to. Whereas now we're talking about, with both the pursuer and the firm foam, they were literally approved by World Curling for use in competitive play. So yeah, tricky situation. For sure.
Yeah, for me, there's an old saying from an old wrestler named Booker T: "Don't hate the player, hate the game." And I just felt when I heard like negative comments towards John Epping, I'm like, what? And then kind of read more into it and heard more about it, and I saw that interview, and he didn't break any rules, and good on him for being as sportsmanlike as he was. Kind of
he didn't have to put the broom away.
No,
he could have just said, "Screw you guys! It's legal and I'm playing with it." So,
and he put the sport ahead of himself, which says a lot about a person and how much he cares about the game, and not letting that kind of become a bigger deal than it already is, even though it is a pretty big deal right now in the curling world. But that, going back to what you said about the John using the black magic, I actually played on the sheet after him when he played Gushu.
Yeah.
And I witnessed him. I think, I don't know if this was mentioned in the podcast or not, but Gushu had to draw in the same path that Epping had just thrown one in, and they were sweeping against the curl, and he was throwing an out turn draw, and the rock, even from the last sweep, still moved out. Like, that's how powerful these were. And then our next game, we played Scott Bailey, and they came out and they had a shaft with the old broom head on one end and the new one on the other. And they were
the kayak broom.
They were flipping them around. It was like, they were like batons, like a marching band. And we were up 5-0 after the second end, and we lost 7-5 because they figured out how to use them in the third end. And
and then that was it. Yeah.
No, but sorry, my point of that is when I saw John, give Brad a rethrow, because it didn't, like, that just says all you need to know about someone in a situation like that. And it wasn't a slam, but it was the Stu Sells. Like, it was a big tournament. There was a lot of points, a lot of money. And so I empathized with John for the, pressure he was under when he technically didn't break any rules. Now I think World Curling needs to get their shit together and get something, proper on paper and get this figured out, because, we haven't really heard anything. I interviewed Tyler George, because I think he's the chair of the Athletes Commission.
Yeah.
And, it was kind of the first time we've sort of heard from World Curling in I could be wrong. Call me out if I am.
Well, they put out a statement basically saying, like, they're not going to ban anything, like, it's fine if the players all agree to not use it as a slam, but they're not going to ban anything. And I mean, it's very similar to Broomgate. When I had Graham Prowse on the pod, who was the vice president of World Curling at the time, and I had Jerry Peckham, who was former high performance director for Curling Canada. And basically they said, like, their kind of stance was, we're not going to ban something based on a phone call. Like, if a curler calls me, even if it's Brad Gushu or whoever calls me, I can't just say, well, yeah, I really respect you as a curler, Brad, and you probably know what you're talking about, so great, I'm going to ban it. Like, they needed to have the research done. They wanted to have the science behind it, because, they're also in a position where legal action could potentially be taken against them if they don't take the proper steps. So that's also a part of it. So I think it sounds like they're going to kind of have the same feeling about it that, that they did in the Broomgate year, which is, we're probably going to have to stick handle through, what's going on until the end of the season, and they can get some official testing done and get some science behind it, and go from there, and I think really the one thing that's working in everybody's favor is everyone agrees the foams are too hard, and I think after the Broomgate year, when the universal fabric was brought in, curlers had been asking their companies to make the foam harder. Whether that was because the foam was ripping because they're too strong or too powerful, or they just wanted to have a harder foam on the end of their broom for carving and drag purposes. But that's really, you can feel the difference in the in the broom heads over the years from hardline and gold line that they were getting a little bit stiffer, and maybe hardline more so than gold line. I don't know for sure, but yeah. And so really, once they kind of ditched that compression modulus or whatever, and they decided that this is the road we're going to go down, I think Balance Plus just kind of said, well, we have to keep up. Like, this is, hardline has a competitive advantage right now because their foam is stiffer than ours. And then Gold Line had been sitting on the Pursuer for a couple of years because they just felt like it wasn't good for the game. But then, once you're in a race for a technological race, you have to keep up. And so,
absolutely.
And so it's just like one of those things. I think, it's not good for the game. I think we all, it's just hard because there just isn't enough money in the game, right? That's really what it comes down to in terms of, getting this research done quickly, getting things set for these companies to, have rules to follow. And so, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where it goes. But I think ultimately that's what is going to happen, is we're going to kind of have these weird sort of rules that we're going to stick handle through the rest of the season. And then they're going to have to try to get another sweeping summit or something going in the off season to really drill down on where the curlers want the foam to be. And then how do we get the manufacturers making the foam to those specifications?
100%. And I think everybody's going to agree with what you just said. Like, we have an issue right now, and yeah, there's certainly going to be some stick handling this season, but at the end of the day, all the manufacturers, all the teams, all the athletes, they all want there to be a, precise answer and a direction for this. And I think everyone will eventually work together and find it. There could just be some growing pains in the meantime, but
yeah, for sure. And the only other thing I have to say is
season 2.
Yeah, I'm announcing it now. Season 2 of Broomgate. I was saying to people in Guelph, I'm glad that there's another potential Broomgate, because that was the only idea that I had. So it's nice not to have to come up with another idea. I can just make a sequel. And hey, that's kind of how Hollywood is doing it these days. So it works for me. But no, I was just going to say, because fans probably don't know this, but you mentioned talking to Tyler George, and I spoke with him today, but they did do a little bit of athlete testing at the Slam. So they wanted to know how these brooms would act on championship ice, because a lot of what we've seen out of the firm foam, so the Gold Line Pursuer hadn't been used in competition yet. And then but the firm foam has been available since November. We've seen a few teams, Epping, Howard, a few other Balance Plus teams. We saw a couple teams at the mixed doubles trials for the Olympics for Canada using the firm foam. Sorry, I lost. Oh yeah, so they that was all done on club ice, other than the mixed doubles trials, and so there hadn't been like a test done on championship ice with championship players that you would trust to sweep and to throw the rock well, and so they actually did get permission from the Slams to use the ice on Sunday morning. I believe a group of curlers came out. All the curlers who were in the Slam were invited to go and watch if they wanted to. And they just tested the firm foam and the Pursuer. Obviously nothing scientific, but just having curlers. I believe they had Rachel Homan throwing the stones. So, probably the most consistent thrower on the planet, similar to how they had Mark Kennedy do it at the sweeping summit. And then they had some of the most, the strongest sweepers on tour sweeping the rocks. And haven't heard, there's conflicting reports on how good or not good, or is this a huge problem, are we blowing it up to be a bigger problem? Like, they haven't really decided on the results yet. I know it got filmed and all of that, but we'll wait to see what happens. But that is definitely, like you said, Tyler, the Athlete Commission for World Curling, they're on top of it. They're really trying to gather as much information as they can. That was kind of step one, and so we'll just kind of see how we go through. But the Brier and Scotty's playdowns are following the World Curling Directive. So, I know there's a bunch of Scotty's playdowns this week. There's a few Brier playdowns as well. BC, Saskatchewan, they've all been told they can use whatever's been approved. So you can use the firm foam or the Gold Line Pursuer in competition right now, because the member associations just kind of have to follow World Curling's directive. So That's where we're at. That's Foamgate for now. I'm sure over the next few months, as we do more Broom Brothers episodes, we'll be keeping.
I'm just going to say
all of that, but
I selfishly kind of like it because it just gives us 3 months of content topics when the slams aren't happening.
Yeah, exactly. But we'll see how it all shakes out. But like you said, I think most of the curlers and the stakeholders in the sport all want the same thing. And so hopefully we can just get the rope pulling in the right direction. Okay. Long opening, but there was so much to talk about. But without any further ado, thrilled. We're going to be joined now we're going to be joined now by Anna Hasselborg. All right, we are pleased to be joined by the newly minted WFG Masters champion, Anna Hasselborg, 8th slam title under her belt. And now, Anna, it is time for the top 4. I'm going to ask you 4 questions very quickly, and you're just going to give me the first answer that pops into your head. Are you ready?
Never, but okay.
All right, here we go. What is your favorite city to play in that is not your hometown?
Oh, well.
Little recency bias there. Okay, very good. If you could ride an animal to work every day, any size animal, like let's imagine they're life size and you can just ride it to work every day, it's not dangerous to you, what animal are you riding?
I'm looking at a giraffe as we speak, so I would say giraffe then.
Oh, a giraffe is actually, that would be kind of cool. Yeah,
yes,
you could like hang off their neck or something.
Yeah. I want to show you it. My son has put it in front of me here, but it's right here. So
nice. Okay. If there was a sandwich in Stockholm at your favorite sandwich place called the Anna Hasselborg sandwich, what's on it?
Oh, tuna for sure.
Really? That's your go-to?
Mm-hmm.
And anything else, or it's just tuna?
No. It's a whole tuna setup with with mayonnaise and oh no, what's the name of that? That's not olives, but are the little
pickles?
Ones. No, yeah, of course pickles also, but
celery?
No, it's like olives, but without the whatever. It should be quick. Wasn't this a quick question?
Yeah, I didn't think we were gonna have to talk about what the small. Anyway, good. It has tuna on it. It's a tuna sandwich. Great.
Yeah.
And final question: what is the worst curling advice you've ever received?
Calm down. No, just no, just okay. I don't know.
Do people tell you to calm down? I feel like you're pretty calm out there.
Oh, you do? Okay, but you didn't know me when I was younger then.
Okay, so you've mellowed with age.
Oh yeah, I'm so grown up and mature now.
Well, that's great. Okay, I love that answer. Okay, calm down, Anna, right now. Robbie, go ahead.
Well, no, let's just right off the bat, double win in Guelph. Grand Slam of Curling, WFG Masters champ, and the Grand Slam of Karaoke champ. Give us an overview in the week. What was working? What's the secret sauce?
I think it's just that overall that we've been playing really well since November. Mm-hmm. Basically since we decided to not play the slam before the Europeans and have really, really great practices. And then we really trusted our schedule there. And also just by turning down a slam, you also get to see from the side how much you want to be there too. So the 2 slams that we had here now before players, we really wanted to make the most out of them, basically because we also turned one down.
Yes.
So, but this week what worked, I guess that's just that we've been throwing really, really well. Like technique is where it should be. And also that we're having a lot of fun. Like we're focusing on having a lot of fun just on ice and off ice. And the Grand Slam of Karaoke helps for having fun. And I think we just has brought that playfulness into our game more as we used to before, maybe in the past. And we really feel like ourselves again.
Nice. Yeah, I love that. I was going to ask this later, but this is a perfect chance to talk about it right now since you brought it up. You've obviously been with your team for quite a long time now. And so when you talk about the playfulness or whatever going out of your game. Like, how do you get that back? Like, when things aren't going great for your team, how do you get it back? Because in Canada, our solution is to fire someone from your team and get someone else. But in Sweden, that's less of an option. So, what are some of the things that, like, do you talk about this? Like, how do you, when you say we brought playfulness back into your game, like, how do you arrive at that?
Yeah, no, I think I think actually everything that this team has done so far in the 8 year, whatever it is, like, has been according to a plan. We have never done everything for not according to a plan. And even this 2 years that we had in this Olympic cycle has been according to plan. And even though after last season, like in the rankings, we were not looking that bad. I think we finished the season on, like, I don't remember, 5 or 6 in the world. It's not that bad, but we were in the playoffs for most slams and qualified in a semi and won a few tour events. Like, it was not a bad season, but we definitely felt that we were not playing as good as we wanted to. And that was also according to plan, because we did say that we wanted to have some down years. And it's so hard to be able to be on top level all the time. And as you said, we've curled for a long, long time together. So I guess in May, when we sat down, we looked at the big plan that we had done for the 4 years after, like, some from the Olympics 2022 and then moving forward. And we were where we should be, but it just felt not as good as we thought it was going to feel like. So we had some really, like, great and tough discussions. So what we had to do, we felt that, like, even if we're at this position in the world right now, we don't see ourselves winning against the Homans, the Andersons, the Tirinisonis, the Gims, the Kims. Like, we didn't feel that. So from basically May, we have worked so hard to get to that point where we feel like that we believe in ourselves to go out against that game and win against those teams. And right now we are exactly where we want to be. And that's why this win meant so much for us, as you maybe saw it did. It was not just the 8th Grand Slam victory. It was more like, this is exactly where it should be.
Yeah. And it was the first in almost 3 years.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
So,
exactly. And that makes sense when you know what we have known going into these 2 first years.
Yeah. Yeah. And just to add to that, or to expand on it, earlier on when John and I were just chatting and we were just giving an overview of the event in Guelph, I used the word hungry to describe what I thought you guys looked like coming into this event. You went undefeated. It looked like that, not that you ever lost it, but that old Team Hasselborg, like, you might beat us, but you're going to have to fight really hard to get that win. Did the silver medal in St. John's add to that? Or, I never thought of maybe you guys taking Nisku off, but what was behind that? What made you that little extra hungrier, more determined to win in Guelph?
I definitely think everything that we had done since May has made us more hungry. And now when we feel that it's coming together, basically from the Europeans and forward, and we're getting the payoff that we have worked so hard of getting, that just makes us really, really hungry. And we have been so hungry since the season started. We were so dedicated and so focused at our European qualifier, playing against Bella. And then we had a little break in the middle, and just because we were tired, basically, because we have been so pumped for getting into the season and be on top straight from the start. And then at the Europeans, everything came together again, and then coming straight into the slam and continuing that good play, and then going undefeated and playing Homan and having a really great final against her, and feeling that we could win. And also, like, we stepped off the ice and said, like, oh, damn, that was our game. Like, they're always amazing, but actually that felt like we should have won it. that made us super hungry for sure. So definitely we are as hungry as you see that we are, probably more. Yeah.
Well, you kind of brought this up too when my esteemed colleague here, Robbie, interviewed you after your win at the Masters. It seemed like you were almost getting a little bit emotional, again, I think when people think of, oh, you've won 8 slams, whatever, it's not the same as Ross winning his first one. Was some of that emotion because you were maybe nervous at some point that the plan wasn't going to work, or like, what was that about?
I think like the biggest feeling you can have in sport is when something comes together, something that you worked really, really hard for, and it comes together. Like, you can go to the gym, you can work your ass off, and I believe that usually have payoff. But as the level of play is right now and how great teams are right now, it's not like that we were sitting in May and saying like, we're going to double the amount in the gym, we're going to double the amount of ice sessions together, we're going to double the amount of analytics times together. Oh, this will definitely get payoff. Like, you cannot 100% say that just going to show on the ice, because you're still playing against team that's doing all those things and have done also worked so hard during the last 2 years when we took a little bit slower years. So when we've had double all those amount of hours put in, and you get to win against Kim, Tirinasoni, and Homan during the same week, that is, that gets me emotional. That is what sport is all about, like putting in the work and hopefully have some great results.
Well, the team certainly works hard.
Yeah, we
guys have been playing for years. How long has it been? 2014, 2015? That's
we put the team together, season of 15-16 together. Yeah.
Do you find it hard? And I've asked a few different teams who have been together for quite a few years this same question. How do you kind of keep things fresh? You've been around the same people. I'm sure you've had the same conversations over and over. What are some things, because peaks and valleys, it's inevitable in sports when you're with the same team for that long. How do you kind of still appreciate the great times, but also maneuver through the tougher times?
I think there's some key words that would apply to our team. And number one is like communication. It's like constant communication. We tell each other where we're at all the time. We're very open, and it's impossible to have that kind of communication with each other if you don't have the trust. I have 100% trust in my teammates that they will do the job, and that they're putting everything into it, and that they're doing their best. That doesn't necessarily mean that it's resulting in the best, but they're trying their best, and that's the biggest trust. And then I think like we've just been with each other through so many different parts of our lives now, that I actually doesn't feel, I get shocked every time someone says like, you're curled for 9 years together. I was like, what? No, seriously? No, we're still working out plenty of stuff. Like we like, no, so it's just that thing. We're like perfectionists. So like there's very rarely a practice or a team meeting where we don't see some point of improvement. Like we talk about every little thing, like, and someone always brings up something that we could have said better, done better, called better, like something like that. All that, like, so we keep each other on our toes, and that is impossible to have if you don't have the communication and trust that we have with each other. And also we have so much fun. Like we, like it's my best friends. Like we are having so much fun. It wouldn't work without it.
You brought
Look at them. They're awesome. Have you seen them? They're so much fun.
I mean, I like 2 of the other 3. No, I'm just kidding. I'm curious, you brought up the big wins you had this week, beating some of the top teams on tour, and specifically Rachel Homan. And I want to talk a little bit about Rachel, because obviously she's on a historic run right now over the last 2 years, probably the best we've ever seen a women's team play. You lost the final of them in St. John's. You just beat them in Guelph. And I was curious, like, is the run that they're on, do you approach a game against Rachel Homan differently because of how good they are? Is there is there something that is different about when you know you've got to play her, or is it just kind of, we're just going to play our game and we'll see what happens?
Both yes and no. I think this week we started with Hammer, and we were pretty confident of the level of play that we played. So this week it was just more about just play our game. But you can never try to be like, you have to put the pedal down against a team like that, even though you're in a lead. So I guess that goes for all great teams that you're playing. Like even if you're 3 up, you can't try to hit yourself out of there. It's impossible. So against, I'm not sure if you watched the game against Turinusoni, but we were like almost double center guards being 3 up or something. So I think that's the same. If you play great teams, you gotta keep the pedal down.
So the key for you is offense, basically, is what you're saying, or aggressiveness.
Yeah, which could also end up with me or Sarah have to make some big peels still, but yeah.
I just want to ask one more question about the team and the time you guys have been together, and then we can get into more fun topics. But during the final, and correct me if I'm wrong, because I'm on the sidelines, but I do have the broadcast in my ears, and I can hear you guys, and I can hear the booth and whatnot. But it seemed like you were struggling with your rocks, maybe a little bit unmatched. And then I think it was the 5th end. There was a little bit of an error. I think you were heavy on a guard. And it just seemed like the whole game, like you started with Hammer, you got the lead. They tied it. You got the lead back. I think you went up 1 and then stole 1, perhaps. But then a chance to kind of really put a nail in the coffin in 5 with a steal. And guard slid a little heavy. I think Rachel had a shot for 3, but got 2. Or maybe. But one thing I noticed is how well you maintained your composure personally. Like, it would have been real easy against a team like Rachel to just say, oh gosh, the breaks aren't going our way. You know, it's easy to throw in the towel, but you didn't. And you made some great shots, including a great shot to win the game. Well, I mean, you probably didn't even have to throw that shot, to be honest, but you still got in the hack and you made the shot. My question is, do you think all the years that your team has played helps with that? Just because you've seen so many different scenarios together, you've been up, you've been down, and you just kind of know how to direct. Just talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. For some reason, the rock that I threw, I took the same pair as in last slam in the final, but for some reason, my one rock there was a cutter.
Yeah.
So it's the same rock that overcurls when she gets the 2 back.
Yeah.
In the second end, and then I switched order, and then my first rock in the 5th, when I was heavy on my guard, my first rock picked again. So that just gets over the hog line, just changing turns, and then the girls think, like we're talking about, it should be the rock, but it's hard sometimes. You're starting to question the path still. So I basically just overthrew my last because I was questioning if it was a pick or the path.
Right.
It sounds weird, but even though it looks like I'm missing a few draws there, I still felt that I had draw weight in, because I had draw weight the whole week, and I felt that what the rock was doing to me. So I felt as long as I get Sophia's rock, I will have draw weight back. So I think that is obviously a part of experience, and also communication. Like the way we're throwing right now in the team with technique wise too makes it very easy for the sweepers to help me out too. Like they could easily tell me, like, you threw that perfect, or I think you were a little bit extra on that, or like whatever. It's very easy to have open communication. So for sure, I think everything just helps with experience. And I felt confident. I felt that if I need to draw the 4-foot for the win, I will do that. And then, I think it's just about a part of us being pretty dialed in. I didn't think so much to what had happened and not so much what was going to happen. So
sure. Yep.
You and I, Anna, I want to let people in on our DMs. I want to give the fans an insight, because I thought this was actually interesting. I sent you a message after the final on Sunday congratulating you, and I was on the call for your game. And you had kind of said that sometimes you get nervous that, the fans or the commentators don't necessarily understand that like a rock picked, or you don't trust the path or whatever. Like, it's easy if it's an English speaking team and you hear Rachel Homan say, oh, I think that rock picked. And then you go, oh, well, it wasn't Rachel's fault that she missed then because the rock picked. But you're nervous that, people who don't understand Swedish are like, oh, Anna sucks. What happened? Why'd she miss that guard or whatever? Which was true. I mean, we didn't say you sucked, obviously, but like in the booth, we were kind of like, oh, it's weird that, Anna couldn't make the guard there in that fifth end. So for the fans, and this is what you told me, can you give us like a brief Swedish lesson, so when we are watching the game at home, we know if there's been a pick or you're talking about the path. Give us a quick Swedish lesson so that we can go, oh, it wasn't Anna's fault, it was a pick.
Okay, perfect. Great idea. I'm not nervous though, but it feels better that when we're not sucking. So since I have the opportunity now.
Yes, exactly. I'm giving you the floor.
Okay.
Let us know.
So when a rock picks, it in Swedish is den skar.
Den skar.
Skar.
Okay.
Scarred.
Yep.
Okay.
Or even, okay, this is course number, like this is upper level course information here, but we also say ekis.
Ekis.
And do you really want to know the story? Because sounds, when I'm going to tell this story out loud, okay, but a lot of Swedish teams use the word ekis.
No, we want to hear the story. Absolutely.
So we say ekis sometimes when it's very heavy and we want it to pick almost, like it's like nothing. And Team Edin says ekis all the time. And apparently it is because there was a guy called Ekis and he was a big piece of shit and you want the rock to hit the shit. This is so Swedish.
No, I love this.
Humor.
Vincent Stenberg told me a little bit about this when I was in the booth with him
yes,
this weekend.
This is like
great.
Swedish 70s humor. This is like what our parents had fun with. So yes.
So the story is, right, he was playing, it was after a guy named like Eklund or something, right? That's where like Ekis comes from, or I said that wrong, but okay. And then so the idea is that he won a Worlds or something on a pick, or he wanted like what to give us the backstory.
Okay, that's more than I knew. The only story I got was just like he was a big piece of shit, so just let the rock go
and hope that it hits a thing. Okay.
Can't wait to hear the Canadian juniors this year. This year at the juniors, there's going to be a pick. Doherty.
Oh, I love it. I was learning. So we had Vincent in the booth, and I was learning some other Swedish slang. I learned that an in-off is tea.
Yeah, that is also very like every time. If you have ever interviewed me and I made like almost like a thinking pause before I'm going to say, like I made a in-off or like a double, because sometimes you just call the double, even if it's an in-off, you call it a double.
Right.
And Swedes are very precise with our doubles. So it's either just like a run back double or a TT, like with this, like, it's like we touch and hit.
Right.
That's the word, TT.
Okay, so there you go. So now that the fans know, if Anna or anyone on the team is saying skar, we know it's a potential pick, and Ekis, thrower screwed up, and also this guy from the 70s was a huge piece of shit. Perfect. Yeah. We're in.
But
That's all I needed to know.
For sure. So, but literally, like I almost like when Sarah overcurled on her open, because that also picked, right? She overcurled on open takeout.
Yeah.
And you're like, I don't want people to think that she was just hooked an intern. Like, so I almost was like, it picked. Like, but then I was like, never mind. But and I just hope that you see that we have been curling so well. We should be able to throw both above the hog line and
right. Well, especially because that was a weird one, because she didn't miss by much, right? Like usually if it's a huge pick,
Yeah.
you can see it. You go, oh shit, that picked and it missed by
Yeah,
a
and
mile.
it picked and release, so she
Gotcha.
tried to spin it back a little bit. So.
Right. So yeah, okay. So that's great. So now the fans know it is maybe not your fault. And also, yeah, I think if you ever want to do it picked, just so everyone knows it picked, we would also accept that.
But now when the fans know, I can just tell them it's scar whenever I throw bad, right?
That's the idea. That's why we're here. That's what the Broom Brothers is here to do. So I'm glad we could clear this up. You know, I've interviewed you a few times over the years, and I do think it's horrible the way Canadians have treated Swedes throughout the number of years. I'm joking, Anna.
I was like,
you know. So I think it's important to bridge the gap between Swedes and Canadians.
I love you, Canadian fans. Don't listen to him.
Can we talk karaoke?
If we can talk karaoke?
Yeah, let's talk karaoke.
Let's talk karaoke.
Well, listen, I don't even need to ask a question. You won. Britney Spears, Hit Me Baby One More Time. Talk us through it. Why the song selection? How did you come to that? What were your thoughts on your performance? Did you think you had enough to win?
Thoughts on that was like, I basically did that when I was 14-year-old too. So I was like, okay, like I can do it again. Just fun. Because I was sitting my guitar before we went and I was like, do I still remember this? And I was like, no, I do. It's a good song. And then just.
Hell yeah, it's a good song.
And then
the song was written by a Swedish guy too.
Exactly. So, also that.
So there's a Max Martin connection.
I mentioned it to, like, I was not sure I was going to participate, but then I mentioned it to the girls on the plane. And when you mention something to my girls, I can't take it back. It's very, very hard to take it back. So there we go.
But music is a big part of your life, is it not? Like before you get into music. Talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, no, it was very funny. Like I had the weird combination on my upper high school. Like when we call it grade 1 to 3. Like we have 0 to 9 and then we have 1 to 3. So when you're like 16 to 19, 15 to 18. Yep. So I went to the curling academy, but my program was music. So I had music and curling. So and then I have a master's in business. So I don't know how.
You're all over the place.
Yeah. But then, so my brother texted me after, so I was like, oh yeah, I won the karaoke. And he's like, don't you ever tell that curling and music took you anywhere. Like, I was like, that was funny. Yeah.
I was going to say, it's kind of like when I was a high school teacher and a comedian, just like the two lowest paying, it's like the lowest paying entertainment job and the lowest paying government job you can have.
Yes.
Kind of feels like curling and music, or so. I'm going to play the sport where I make the least amount of money and then also try to be a musician, which is very difficult.
But I've never pursued anything in music. I only had fun with it, and it's a big part of my family's, like what we do in our family too, like both curling and music. So it's just one of those things.
Can I ask you a strange question just to elaborate on that? Do you ever find that not music, but being a musician, obviously with music, you have to think with another part of your brain. It's not scientific, it's art. Does that ever help you on the ice? And here's an example why I ask. My wife is a pharmacist. She's extremely type A personality, very planned out. And we golf together quite a bit. And we are complete opposite golfers. Like she's dead straight off the tee. She's, 3-wood in is usually really straight and long. It's when you get, near the green where she can't take a wedge, take a full swing and hit it the correct distance to the green. Where you never know where I'm going off the tee. You never know where my second one's going. But, if I'm 40 yards in and I'm behind a tree and I have to, if I get creative, if I just try to slice one a little bit around here, get a bank off this, maybe it will roll down. And I usually get lucky on those. Do you ever find anything like that on the ice? It just lets you see things a little bit different, maybe think things through?
I have never thought about it in terms of that being like something because of music, but um, I just think that you need to be creative on the ice, and I think I've never met a curling player that is like not using their brain. Like you have to be a person. You have.
Meet me at Appray Curl.
2 of them are on this call right now.
maybe you just paused your brain. Like the brain is still there. I think that to be a good curler, I still think you need some kind of, like you have to be some kind of, like you have to be good at understanding analytics and something.
Of course.
I'm definitely understand what your question is, but I never thought about it in terms of being like a creative person also, because I'm also like in my team, I am also called the Rain Man. So, and I like to think and analyze and so, but I definitely think that the music part of it, even though like it comes and goes for me with all the like with hobbies and passions you have, like sometimes it's more, sometimes it's less. I played a lot more guitar during the pandemic as everyone else.
Yeah.
And then I almost haven't touched the guitar until like my toddler was like, oh, guitar. And I was like starting to play it. Like it's like, but we have instruments at home here. So I have a ukulele that I would play children's songs on, and we have a piano that's like, so it's, and I also want to have the same environment that I grew up in, like
of course,
lots of music. And
I bought an accordion during the pandemic.
Pardon?
Oh God!
I bought an accordion during the pandemic.
I was going to ask because the last time I interviewed you, we ended up talking about this off camera, but I think this is a cool story that the fans would like to hear. Your husband, when you guys got married, took your last name, and there was like a funny, or not funny, but like kind of cool reason for that. So could you tell us about that?
If you ever meet a Hasselborg, that person is 100% related to me. So there's only Hasselborg is it's only my family's name that is Hasselborg.
Oh, so you're like the only Hasselborg family on Earth.
Yeah, but there is a weird thing, actually. There's a lake in Canada that we don't know how that part is related to us, or if it's not, or if my great grandpa heard about that lake and then took Hasselborg, because there's actually a Hasselborg Creek in Canada.
Oh, really?
Oh. You know,
we'll
where?
have to do some research. Maybe
somewhere in Ontario, I think, up north.
Maybe we'll do that for a feature.
Yeah,
you and I can fly to Hasselborg
like,
Creek and we'll figure it out.
Hasselborg is like a taken name a few many generations back. But he was also like a hunter and a trapper and stuff, and maybe he just found the story of this Hasselborg Lake because there was apparently someone that hunted for bears there, and that makes sense because he also hunted for bears up north in Sweden, because my family is from way back up north.
Right. Cool. So the idea was that he would take your name because you want to keep your family name alive. Like there just aren't that many Hasselborgs left.
Exactly. So exactly. Yeah. So let's focus on that part. Is that yes? There's no one named Hasselborg except our family here in Sweden. So yes, he took my name, and it's not that a big of a thing here in Sweden. Like Agnes' husband took Knochenhauer as well. So
I offered to take my wife's last name.
If it's cool, why don't?
She said no. Yeah.
Oh,
I just wanted her nickname.
No.
Well, my wife and I, we were thinking about doing a hybrid last name, because my last name is Cullen and her last name is Priddle. So we were going to become the Cuddles.
Oh, well, I approve of that.
Okay, well, so do I, but our parents were not happy. We kind of like threw it out as sort of like a joke, and both of our parents were like, absolutely not. You are not the Cuddles. And we were like, okay, fine, I guess, whatever.
But I think that, so my husband's name was Eriksson, which is also Oscar Ericsson's name.
Right.
So Ericsson is a very, very common name. So I basically told him that his name could be whatever he wants to be, but my name and my children's name are going to be Hasselborg.
No, I love it. I think that's just so
No,
cool
but-
to me that you're like the only Hasselborgs on earth. I think that's so sick.
Let's take the coolest one. I think we have the privilege to do that when people don't put any given norms on a choice of names.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
Robbie, you got anything else?
I really wanted to ask about karaoke. I felt like I got a good answer.
Yeah,
one
did
last-
I go deep enough there? I was just a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun.
Well,
You
one
killed
last
it. I was in the room. The fans were loving it. It was a great time.
I can definitely not listen to it afterwards because I 100% think it sounds like shit, but I had fun.
So, but my question that I just want to end with, you won in Guelph. Do you plan to defend the title in Toronto?
Oh, the karaoke title here.
You automatically
Never mind
defend the
curling.
Players' Championship. We know you'll be curling. Will you be singing?
Well, I think Bella was really like the former karaoke, like let's call her what it is. She is the queen of karaoke.
Yes.
Uh,
Very good.
She's enthusiastic.
so she said that she has drafted me now. So we'll see about that. What I'm doing for that.
You guys are going to do a duo?
I have no idea. But the queen of karaoke has spoken, so I might just turn her down because I'm.
You could win the whole thing in Toronto and just say, "Oops, I did it again."
Oh no, but Bella is she's definitely the queen of karaoke. And then I texted her that, and then she said, "And you had to beat me in that tonight too." And I was like, "So sorry, my friend."
I know I saw her after and she said, thank you so much to the Grand Slams for having Anna beat me twice in 2 hours. It was great feeling. So.
It's a great rivalry. I know that she has spoken on this podcast. I think she formulated her very well. That like it's part of the like not karaoke but curling.
It makes you both better.
Yeah.
I'm ready.
No, but-
I'm ready for
but
the
having-
duet. I think a Swedish duet of Anna and Isabella would bring the house down in Toronto. So I think we're ready. I will say a lot of people in Guelph were bugging me to do it. So I might have to make my debut in Toronto as well. I don't think I should be able to win because I work for the Slams. It's not fair to take the money away from the players, but
Then it might be rumors that they are not paying you enough.
That's what I was going to say, John, because we're getting millions here.
yeah, I'm also voting for the All-Star game because I want that signed All-Star jersey really bad. I'm just trying to get whatever I can out of it.
Yep, good.
Should be a good time. Well, Anna, thank you so much for joining us. Always a pleasure to chat to you. Congratulations again on your win. Good luck at the Worlds, and we'll see you at the Players in April.
Thank you so much.
See you, Anna.
All right, Robbie, there you have it. Great chat with Anna Hasselborg. It's now time for Let's Play a Game. And I'm going to keep it really easy, Robbie, but I will say this game is maybe putting you on the hot seat a little bit. But we had an announcement of a brand new thing coming. The first ever curling group Grand Slam of Curling All-Star Game is happening in Nashville at the T-Line Bar. It's going to happen right after the Players Championship. More info on all of that, what the festivities are going to look like. If you're in the Nashville area, getting tickets, all of that, we'll keep you updated. But what we do know right now is, as a fan, you can head on over to the grandslamofcurling.com/all-star, and you can place a vote for your favorite players that you want to see go to the All-Star game. And just by voting, you can vote once per day. And just by voting, you get entered into a chance to win a signed All-Star jersey. So, there's going to be some great signatures on that jersey. We are very excited for that event. You can head on over right now and vote. You vote for 4 men, 4 women. And so, Robbie, here's the game. If you were voting, tell me your 4 men and 4 women. It has to be by a position. So I need a skip third, second lead for both men and women. Who are you voting into the All-Star game in Nashville?
Okay, I'll start with women.
Okay.
Lauren Lenentine.
Nice.
Team Lenentine.
Yeah. PEI. You have to do it.
Second, I'm going to go Carly Burgess.
Okay, nice. Get a little spice going there.
Yeah. Third, I'm going to go Sarah McManus.
Okay.
I think you need a little international
Yeah.
in there. And skip Rachel Homan.
Gotta be.
Oh, for sure. Rachel's so funny. Like she's just
so funny.
She's one of the most unique people I've ever met.
Yeah.
And
I've loved
never met
spending
somebody
time with her this year. It's been awesome.
Yeah, I've never met someone who amazes, entertains, and just impresses you so much as Rachel Homan, the human. I don't even mean the curler. Just she's
totally.
hilarious.
Totally.
All right, men. Ooh, this is tough, John.
I know.
Men, I think I have to go Hammy.
Okay. Yep.
Hammy.
Real character. Gotta wonder if he'll have like a special hairstyle for the All-Star game.
Oh, and Hammy in Nashville would be hilarious.
Yes. Good point. Maybe we shouldn't bring him to Nashville. That might actually be a problem for Hammy.
Yeah. I'm going to go Gallant second.
Sure.
Third. I'm going to say Robin Bryden.
Okay. Yep.
And skipper, I am going to go Nicholas Edin.
Yeah. Fan favorite. Probably gotta have him there.
Yeah. And I think he'd be just really funny in Nashville.
Yeah. I agree. Okay, I like that. That's a good little mix of personalities. I'm excited. Okay, good picks. We're gonna see eight of the curlers. Going to be 12 person teams. You have 2 teams of 12, 2 teams of 6. There'll be 12 players total. 8 will be selected by a panel of experts, and I'm hearing maybe Robbie, you and I are on the panel. So experts is a term being used very loosely. And then 4 will be decided by fan vote. So head on over to the grandslamofcurling.com/allstar. Get your vote in. You can win a signed jersey. Thank you so much for joining us here for another episode of Broom Brothers. Thanks to Anna Hasselborg for joining us. We really appreciate it. Love talking to her. Again, vote in the All-Star game. If you like the show, please rate and review it on whatever podcast app you're listening to. If you want to see the video of this episode, our YouTube page, we're just YouTube, The Broom Brothers. And we're on all social media at The Broom Brothers as well. So give us a follow, give us a rating, a review. We would love to see that. We appreciate you listening. All the feedback has been amazing. So thank you so much, and we'll see you back here in a couple weeks. Bye.
See you next time.